Alright folks, welcome back to Terminal Disclosure. Alex here, your friendly neighborhood IT enthusiast, ready to dive headfirst into the digital rabbit hole. Today we're tackling a seriously dark and disturbing topic, the takedown of Group 764 Inferno, an online child exploitation network. Buckle up, because this is going to be a rough ride, but it's a story that needs to be told. I'll break down all the technical jargon, explain the tactics these monsters used, and hopefully give you some tools to protect yourself and your loved ones. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of how law enforcement pulled this off, the disturbing details of what these guys were doing, and what this all means for the future of online safety. So let's get started, shall we? Because, well, this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night, and I figured I'd share the insomnia with you all. So what is Group 764 Inferno, and why should you care? Well, in short, they were a core subgroup of a larger online network called 764. The U.S. Attorney's Office describes 764 as a network of, and I quote, nihilistic violent extremists who, and again I quote, seek to destroy civilized society through the corruption and exploitation of vulnerable populations. Charming, right? Their goals. Social unrest and the downfall of the current world order, including the U.S. government. Think digital age nihilists with a penchant for, well, truly evil stuff. These guys weren't just keyboard warriors spouting edgy opinions, they were actively targeting and exploiting vulnerable individuals, including children, which brings us to the even more charming part. This Inferno subgroup, led by a couple of real winners named Leonidas Varagianis, a 21-year-old U.S. citizen residing in Greece. Yes, this story has international flavor, and Prasen Nepal, a 20-year-old from North Carolina, operated through encrypted messaging apps. They are accused of directing, participating in, and facilitating the production and distribution of child sexual abuse material, as well as grooming, manipulating, and extorting minors. These tactics allegedly included ordering victims to commit self-harm and subjecting them to psychological torment and extreme violence. Some victims were as young as 13. Think about that for a second, 13-year-olds. This isn't some abstract internet boogeyman, this is happening to actual children, and it's absolutely sickening. Before we get further, I will be using the acronym CSAM, spelled out, to refer to child sexual abuse material. I'm also going to try to keep the details as clinical as possible, because some of this stuff is just too much to handle otherwise. Alright, good, let's move on. The way they operated, as best as we can piece together, was truly depraved. They targeted vulnerable children online, coercing them into producing explicit content under threat and manipulation. This included so-called cut signs and blood signs, where girls would cut symbols into their bodies. Imagine the level of psychological control and manipulation required to convince someone to do that. The material they collected, CSAM and other violent content, was used to create digital lore books, which served as digital currency within the 764 network. These were traded, archived in encrypted vaults, and used to recruit new members or maintain status. Think of it as a twisted digital economy of horror. It's sort of like, instead of trading bottle caps in Fallout, they're trading, I can't even think about it. This wasn't just about sharing illicit content, it was about building a community, a twisted hierarchy based on the exploitation and abuse of children. It's the online equivalent of a back alley deal, but with global reach and anonymity. Just another reason to hate the internet, am I right? So how did law enforcement manage to dismantle this vile operation? Well, it was a coordinated effort involving the FBI, both in the U.S. and in Greece, and the Hellenic National Police. They followed the digital breadcrumbs, traced the encrypted communications, and ultimately identified and arrested Varagianis in Nepal. This case, by the way, was brought as part of Project Safe Childhood, a nationwide initiative launched by the Department of Justice back in 2006 to combat child sexual exploitation and abuse. So this isn't some new problem, it's a decades-old problem, but it continues to evolve. According to the FBI, Prasen Nepal allegedly instructed other members of the network to use explicit material to induce and extort victims into producing child exploitative content. The FBI is determined to do whatever necessary to stop the heinous actions of 764 members and hold them accountable in the justice system. It's good to hear they have that resolve. And it's worth noting that according to Allison Nixon, Chief Research Officer for cybersecurity company Unit 221B, Varagianis in Nepal were major actors in this network. She added that com-related crime waves are driven by a small number of highly prolific actors, and arrests really are a winning strategy. This highlights a key point. Taking down even a few key players can have a significant impact on disrupting these types of online criminal enterprises. The takedown of KidFlix, a child sexual abuse platform operating on the dark web, provides a good example of that. The operation, dubbed Operation Stream, involved German authorities, Europol, and law enforcement agencies across Europe and the Netherlands. Kidflix hosted CSAM and had a user base exceeding 1.8 million individuals globally. The takedown involved a complex investigation and assistance from 35 countries. Which shows it takes a village, a global village, to fight these things. As part of the crackdown, 1,400 suspected users were identified worldwide. They even took down the server and were able to find 72,000 explicit videos on it. So what can we learn from the dismantling of Group 764 Inferno and similar operations? Well, first, the internet, for all its wonders, can be a very dark place. These networks thrive on anonymity, exploitation, and the darkest corners of human depravity. We need to be aware of the risks, particularly for our children and other vulnerable individuals. But also, and this is very important, we need to remember that we can fight back. Law enforcement is getting better at tracking and dismantling these networks. We need to support their efforts, demand accountability from online platforms, and educate ourselves and our children about online safety. And as one investigator, Annemiek van Noord, put it, we're sending a clear message. We know what you're doing. Possessing child abuse content is a crime. Stop and seek help, which leads us to our next section. How do you protect yourself and your family from online exploitation? All right, first of all, this isn't about scare tactics. It's about being informed and proactive, so let's get to some actionable advice. Have open and honest conversations with your kids, your friends, your family. Talk about the risks of online interactions, the importance of protecting personal information, and the potential dangers of sharing explicit content. If you have young children, teach them about body safety and boundaries, and encourage them to tell a trusted adult if anyone makes them feel uncomfortable, both online and offline. Use parental controls. And I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes thinking, parental controls, my kid's a tech whiz, they'll just bypass them. And you might be right, but it's a first line of defense. Set privacy settings. Check the settings on all social media, gaming platforms, and apps. Make sure profiles are set to private, limiting the exposure of personal information. There's also monitoring online activity. Keep devices in common areas of the house. This isn't about spying, it's about creating a transparent environment where you can keep an eye on things, understand the platforms, familiarize yourself with the apps and websites your children use. Look for any red flags or potential dangers. Know who they're talking to. Who are your kids' friends with online? Are they talking to strangers? Are there any weird power dynamics going on? Talk to them and understand their relationships. If something does happen, if you suspect your child is being groomed, exploited, or harassed online, take action immediately. Contact the authorities. Report any suspected online enticement or sexual exploitation of a child to the FBI, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or your local law enforcement. Preserve evidence, take screenshots, save messages, and document everything. These actions can be crucial in helping law enforcement investigate. Seek support. This is a traumatic experience, and it's important to get help for both you and your child. There are resources available to help victims and families cope with the aftermath of online exploitation. I know some of this can be a pain, but I ask you, what's more important than keeping your family safe? A little discomfort is the least you can do to protect them from these monsters. One of the most challenging things is that just as law enforcement and average citizens have tools to fight back, so do the bad guys. AI is becoming a double-edged sword. As cybersecurity expert Jayant Mistry puts it, when people engage in illegal activities, their first thought is how to not be found. That's where the dark web comes in. It's a platform that lets them hide behind a curtain, making it difficult for authorities to track them. And he's right. They're using encryption, they're using virtual private networks, they're using cryptocurrency to hide their tracks. And now they're using AI to create even more realistic and undetectable content. We can't ignore it, and that means that they are able to target you more effectively and harder to catch than ever. As our sources say, the battle for online safety will be a constant arms race of innovation, a challenge that requires constant vigilance and adaptation. So what does the future hold? Well, it's a mixed bag. On one hand, we're seeing advancements in AI-powered threat detection, better data analysis, and greater international cooperation. These are all positive developments, but on the other hand, the bad guys are also getting smarter, using AI to create more realistic and undetectable content and finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities. We must continue to innovate, collaborate, and adapt to stay ahead of these threats. We need stronger legal frameworks, more robust online safety measures, and greater public awareness. This requires a collaborative effort involving technology companies, law enforcement agencies, governments, and individuals. The fight against online exploitation is a long and arduous one, but it's a fight we can't afford to lose. If you have the skills to help, if you have resources that can be deployed, do your part. Get involved. Because if we all work together, we can make the internet a safer place, and we can protect our children from these digital monsters. It's a fight worth fighting. We gotta send them straight to the trash bin. Alright folks, that's all the time we have for today. I know this was a heavy episode, but it's important to shine a light on these issues, no matter how disturbing they may be. A quick recap: Group 764 Inferno was a nasty online exploitation network that targeted vulnerable individuals, including children. Law enforcement successfully dismantled it, but the threat of online exploitation persists. To protect yourself and your family, be informed, be proactive, and don't be afraid to take action. And a big thanks to all the law enforcement professionals, cybersecurity experts, and advocacy groups who are working tirelessly to combat online exploitation. You're the real heroes. I know this podcast is a bit of a downer from time to time, so thanks for making it this far. And if you enjoyed this show, which I think is an odd statement here, drop a comment, leave a like, and hit that subscribe button. If you like these long-form dives into internet shenanigans, let me know. That's all for this week. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on the next Terminal Disclosure.